Welcome back to the channel. This is the third part of the Yashica FR-1 adventure. I have already disassembled the second body completely. This is the shutter unit. Just like the previous one, it's actually working, but it was jammed. So half cock the curtains, cock the mirror, and finally fully cock the curtains, and then release from this guy. And just like the other body, this gear has two worn teeth, so it's probably just as useless as the other one. The focusing screen is in very good shape. It has the mirror. The prism is in good shape. The light meter is in less of a good shape. This is the light meter, and when I took it off, the bottom cover kind of was left behind, so this one should go like this, but I'm not really sure. I think it was glued on, simply glued on top, so well, I suppose it's not that big of a deal to put back. I will keep it just in case. The light meter on this one actually works correctly, so I measured it against my digital camera and it's right there. It's okay. The only thing that I noticed is that when I mount a lens, so I don't have it here. If I mount my Yashica 50mm lens 1.7, the actual little pointer in the viewfinder that shows the aperture is not on 1.7, is a bit shifted, like in between two figures. So I'll have to see how I can fix that. I do have the front plate from the second camera. So when you mount a lens, this tab will be rotated like this, slightly. So depending on what maximum open aperture you have. So if it's 1.7, it will go a bit. If it's, I don't know, 2.8, it will go a bit more. If it's 1.2, it will probably not move at all, because 1.2 is the lowest figure in the viewfinder, the lowest number. So it moves a bit. Moving this a bit will also move this pulley a bit, and the pulley is what shows you the aperture. But also this ring has a pair of contacts that run along this brass ring. So the position of the contacts on this one is correct, otherwise the light meter would be off, and it's not. That means this one is the element that should be shifted in order to give me the correct reading. Now I can do that, I think I can do that by moving the point where this string is glued. Okay, so it's glued here, here, and it's also sandwiched between this bracket and the chassis, the front plate. So let's see if I try to grab the string. See, I can grab the string and pull it without this moving. So no matter what I do with the string, this ring does not move. So I'll probably have to take off this glue, undo the bracket, and hopefully pull it a bit further. Well, actually I will pull it further, see what happens. If it's going the wrong way, then I will slacken it some more. Alright, so this is what I found regarding the aperture readout and the light meter being in a working state. Okay, so the fun part begins now, because not only that I really want to get this camera back in one piece and working, but I also don't have any kind of reference anymore outside of the service manual, because I took apart both the other ones, so I can't use one of them for reference. I did not pay attention to the screws again, because it was not my intended purpose. So pretty much all the screws from both cameras are in one little box. And that means that I will have to be very organized, because there are so many little bits and pieces and so many different screws. For instance, this little guy has these little two screws and they are different. This one is from something else. So I'll have to make sure that I note down each screw and its correct position. And what I also saved from the other bodies is this one. So this is the advanced mechanism. It goes one way and it's spring loaded. This is where the I won't put it back. This is where the actuating lever sits, so it goes like this. I cleaned it in the ultrasound bath. I cleaned it with alcohol, and I used some Nye oil to grease the inside of this bit, so it has a little spring that turns the lever back. I used Nye oil inside there, and also a very tiny bit of Nye oil here between this gear and this fixed part. Normally it should be taken apart, cleaned and put back. I could actually try it some way further down the road, because I will have 3 of these. 2 are okay, meaning they both have this part of the threaded shaft intact, and this one has the shaft broken. So once I get this one out, I can pull it apart, see what's inside, see if I can put it back together. I've got nothing to lose, this one is useless. Okay, and I also saved the self timer, same treatment, a little bit of Nye oil here, here, and on this side here, and here. So on the shafts of all the gears that have visible shafts. And now I will take off the excess oil. Unfortunately, I don't have an oiler, so the oiler is like a very fine needle that you can actually pick up a very minute amount of oil and drop it precisely in a single point, and I have to rely on a rather big syringe with an even bigger needle. I'll try to either find something online and buy, or maybe get some smaller needles and adjust the tips. Alright, so these two parts are ready for transplantation. Okay, what else? I've got this little tray that's divided, and it's numbered with letters from A to T, and this box numbers from 1 to 21. So I'll use them combined to store different parts, different screws, write down the order of the screws, write down the order of disassembly, and I'll use the bigger box for bigger parts, smaller container for, I don't know, screws and stuff like that. And hopefully I will get it right. Of course, I still have the exploded parts diagrams, but sometimes it's not so easy to follow them, at least not for me, and I would rather just take notes, take pictures, and see how it goes. Okay, so for this part of the actual disassembly part, or disassembly tutorial, I will take out or take off the covers. So we have the rewind knob, back door. Now in theory, since these are Japanese cameras, I rely on the fact that all components are interchangeable, so there are no tolerance issues between parts. So pretty much I have 3 sets of back doors, bottom plates, top plates, front plates, you name it, screws and other stuff, minus the broken ones. So only 2 of these, 2 of these, 2 of these knobs, 2 of these knobs, I think, and only 1 lever. So I'll make use of what I've got. Then I need to take this one out, and I used that one. So it's a simple pliers, 90 degrees bend pliers that I filed down to make notches in the tips, and hopefully the notches are, yep, it works. Anyhow, I think I opened this one up before, so they should be loose. Okay, then we have this that is very dirty. Since I have to, I'll see how easy or complicated it is to take it apart and really clean it. It has a spring washer or something inside. Okay, and that's about it for this one. Nothing here, only 2 screws here, 1 there, and the top plate should lift. So bigger screw under the ASA dial, 2 smaller screws on the sides. If you have the possibility, only use JIS screwdrivers for Japanese camera. JIS comes from Japan industry standard, I think, and it looks like a Phillips screwdriver, but it's not. And also the screws, if you take one and look really careful, you'll see that the slots are slightly shifted, so it's not a cross, it's more like a shifted cross somehow. Many times it doesn't really matter, or it doesn't make a difference, but sometimes it really does a difference. This one is a Phillips screwdriver, 00, because I broke my 00 JIS. I still have one spare one, but I need to find it. This one is JIS, so I use a combination. Alright, now this one lifts, and yes, it was open before because this wire is not attached, and this is plastic. This is plastic, and that's interesting because one of the top plates, and I think it's the one in the better shape, is actually metal. Lucky me, I suppose. Alright, this is the little window that goes here for the frame counter. It's simply glued in place, and under these protective sheets there's the hot shoe part. Okay. What else? Bottom cover. Oh, and don't do this mistake that I always do. Open something up and turn it upside down, because usually things fly off, and yeah, then you'll have to figure it out where those things came from. For instance, under this plate I have one screw missing, so I'll have to find one in the parts bin, and unfortunately I didn't pay attention to simply take one from the get-go. Alright, so on this, under this bottom cover, if you turn it upside down, this thing falls off, the battery of course, and sometimes this thing. It's not falling off because it's kept in place by this old rusty light seal foam. Now I'll need to remember to actually cut some light seal foam pieces and put back. So this one is the light baffle here on the motor drive gear. The bottom plate has the marks of this foam, so I guess I need 2 of them. Okay, and I also want to take off the front well, this is weird. These 3 wires are disconnected because I was already inside the camera, but I tested the light meter yesterday and I forgot these were disconnected, and yet the camera gave me a correct reading, so it must have been a pure coincidence because it is not reading the position of the aperture. Funny. Well, hopefully it is in the light meter, it is in good shape, because if it is not, I will only be able to find that out when it's almost fully reassembled, and I really don't want to mess with all the wires again. You can't really take this one out with all those wires in position. So 4 screws and this. All right. And the next problem is deciding how to attack all these wires. Oh, and one more thing. These spacers or washers, they come in various thicknesses and they come in precise positions. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4. You have another couple behind this. I think 2 up and 2 down, and probably one more somewhere. I don't really remember exactly, but there are at least 8, but I think there are 10 in total. That means that if during my messing around with the camera I dislocate more than one, I risk not putting them back correctly in the correct order. So I either take them down, make sketch and stick them on something, so front plate, top right, bottom right, and so on, or I could write on them, but writing on them is prone to failure. It could wipe out or wipe off. See, this one is a lot thinner because it had a tendency to bend. But very nice of them to actually glue them in place, although the camera is full of glue around screws and whatnot. Alright, and one more, and this one I think is thicker. No, actually it's not. Okay. So I'll use my notebook, make a sketch. Actually, I will use a dedicated page for this. So spacers, front plate, and we have top right, bottom right, top left, bottom left. And I will just use some masking tape and stick them to the notebook. And that way I am pretty sure that they are not going anywhere. Like this. And the next set is position like this, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I can use the same piece of paper to glue them on, and I could also sketch, like, I don't know, the front of the camera so it's easier to remember, but it's obvious, so I don't think I'll need that. Now back to what I was saying about the wiring. On the first 2 cameras I actually started and disconnected wires. So my goal is to lift the flexi board. I will need to lift this assembly. So this is the ASA assembly, and then the flexi does a loop here. So practically the board for the ASA is part of the flexi. This screw is very long and very hard to remove. Well, this one is not because it's moving around, but on the other two cameras it was a nightmare. And is it is long and hard to remove because it also keeps in place this. Okay, the one on the other side is just a bit shorter, and on one of the cameras it was actually slightly bent, so probably somebody pulled really hard on these at some point. Okay, back to what I was saying again. So my main goal is to lift the flexi, and in order to do that, I for the other two cameras I started to disconnect all these wires. So you see there are a lot of wires from the flexi, which now seems like a bad idea. I would rather disconnect the wires from the bottom plate, because this one is I think it's harder to burn in case I get it wrong with the LEDCon. Then I would have to I could disconnect, yeah, I will disconnect all the wires from here, and also this red one that comes from the battery is easy to take out. Two screws here for this contact of the battery, and one solder point here, and you simply take it out. Then there's another wire, this purple one, that has a slightly more funky routing. So it goes from here through this hole, gets out from this hole, then re-enters the body from there and exits from here, then goes under, and it gets soldered here. So this one I would rather desolder from here than from here, like I did on the other two cameras. What I will not desolder from the bottom part is the wire, or actually the wires that are connected to this, so to the electromagnet, and there should be two of them. These two black ones. I will not desolder them from here, I will desolder them from the top. I'll see which ones they go, I think here. And that's pretty much it on this side, so I will pretty much desolder them as I go. On the other side it's a bit trickier, because there are at least a couple of points where they soldered two wires in the same point, and I'm not really good with the soldering gun. So, and here for instance, this bit is actually a wire in itself. It comes from down under, and it makes a loop across these two wires, and it's soldered in place. So it's very tight. It's very easy to actually burn something while trying to desolder something else, especially when the soldering or the solder bubble, let's call it bubble, it's so large, so you need a lot of heat to actually melt it. I'll see what and how I can do. Oh, and this one is actually this one. Then I'll have to take care of all these wire brackets. I got one here, I have one here, I have one here. So these three, so two yellows and a white, will be desoldered from this part because they are very easily accessible. It's a lot easier than to work here under all of this mess. And I will probably have a couple more that are a bit trickier to get to. I think this gray one and the orange one, and they go to this part. So pretty much this is the winding assembly, but it's only the mechanical part. Beneath this part there are three holes, so three holes, three screws, and this is where the shutter contact sits. We'll get to that eventually. So it's just a round piece of copper, a very thin sheet of copper, an isolator round piece, and some other things, two of them having electrical contacts. So when you push the little thingy, the button that pushes this rod, so this rod goes in here, well, obviously it will fall out. The end of the rod will push through the insulator, will push on that round piece of copper that is pretty much like this one, but this is something totally different. It's but similar in design. So it pushes on this, on that copper thing contact, and it will actuate the electronics of the camera. The soldering points are on the bottom, so this one is like this, sits like this, and the soldering points are on the bottom, so that's a bit more tricky to get to. Okay, and that's pretty much it. I also decide if I will replace this capacitor or not. I think it's the only electrolytic capacitor. I didn't see any other. And the electrolytics go bad with time. Now this camera is what, 40 years old, or maybe even older. So this one is certainly out of spec. I'll see if I have some. It's a 220 microfarads at 6.3 volts rating, and it says on it Japan. That's it. So I don't know what brand it is. It doesn't really matter. I don't know what effect an out of spec capacitor would have on the overall functionality. I suppose if I do have one, a new one lying around, I could just as well replace it. Let's see how. I'll see. Alright, so I think that's it. That's it for this part. I will not explain each step, meaning each wire, as I unsolder it, because it would take forever. It's taking forever anyway. Maybe I'll do fast forward the time lapse or something. See, this one comes out, and yeah, we'll continue when all the wires are out and we can take out the mirror box and shutter assembly. Now, to get the mirror box and shutter assembly out, we have two screws here. We have two screws here below this rotten light seal. So 1, 2. And that's pretty much it. Also, I would have to remove the self-timer escapement that is only kept in place by this little one screw. But the thing is, you can't just take it out because you don't have room to take it out. You can't lift the mirror box out because it lifts out of the camera because this one is in the way. So it would have to be like a dance, trying to lift this, pulling it a bit outwards and take that out, take the escapement out, like so. This is the escapement, like this somehow. Taking them out is easier than putting them back, as I will probably soon see. Okay, that's it. We'll continue in part 4.